giant stack of documents. The Article 10 process, we're the third project in the state to get through it. And it is a statutory 1-year time frame for them to do that process for the normal application. But for the amendments, there's not some sort of rule. So we're trying to talk with the DPS and give them the information that they need and try to get as much as we can from them, understanding the timeline that they might need to get that amendment approved.
Now, why did you guys decide to change the project after everything?
So,
I mean, it's been a long process.
Yeah.
It's been taxing on
Everyone.
all the towns,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
And we were done, we were all set. And I thought you'd start basically construction this winter.
yeah, so that was the plan originally. So we received Article 10, September 10th, I think it was, or 12th. And there are conditions that we expected in the Article 10 that would take about 45 to 60 days to satisfy. They stayed 45, we kind of planned on 60, basically submitting our construction drawings before we could start the construction. We were planning on submitting those before we received Article 10 so that we could start as soon as possible, but the state said they wouldn't submit them, but they're not going to start reviewing them until we finalize the Article 10. So when we were starting our other project, Casadega, towards Lake Erie, those conditions, even though they stay 45 days, we're finding that they take 3 months. So when we looked at the schedule, September, mid-September, say we get the Article 10, so 3 months ahead, we're already in the winter. And having the contractor mobilize and start in the winter was risky. They might be able to do it, but it probably was not going to work. So therefore, we were not planning on being able to start construction until the summer of 2020 because of the timelines and the uncertainty that we're seeing from the state. We talk about our management board a lot. They're very conservative. They want everything in place before they make a decision. So they would not give us a decision until we receive the Article 10 to know exactly what those conditions were going to be. So we just had to wait until we got that. And then when we saw how long things were taking with their other New York project, it was showing us that the timelines were not going to work to be able to achieve commercial operations by the end of 2020. So what does that mean? That means that if you look at the production tax credit, which is starting to fade away, that's fading away at 20% a year. So there's that, and the turbine, well, that's one piece of it. So basically, we had to look at the project was already very borderline on whether it's economic or not. There's a lot of things that are variables that you have to kind of guess at what they're going to be like in the future, and that includes the power prices. Power prices fluctuate, so we have to assume what that power price is going to be. There's other things as well, the wind speeds, things like that. But we knew that the turbine value was going to go down. The project value is going to go down due to the turbines and the production tax credit. So we had to figure out a way to make up that value, or else there's no way we're going to build the project. So the only way really to gain value with the project was increase the wind resource that we're receiving from the turbines. And the only way to do that is to make the rotors bigger and potentially go higher. So that really is what has driven the delay, the loss in value for the project, and then the way to find new value for that project to go taller. So, and then when we looked at all this timing, this kind of started happening around August, or right around the time of the received Article 10, that we started realizing this based on Casadega. So we had to look at new turbines and what's out there, and the technology of these turbines is changing. Like the turbines that you buy now are different than the turbines that you might buy 2 years from now. So it's not so like you can just buy the same one that you had. It's changing. A lot of them are getting bigger. I think I saw a report that said over half of the turbines that were signed under contract for I believe it was 2018, were over 500 feet tall. So everything is getting taller. That's for the whole country. So that everything is getting taller. And I mean, there's good reason for it, there's better wind up there, there's less turbulence, it's better for the projects, it's better for the turbines. And then we can get more megawatts per turbine, so that way it kind of benefits, the towns, entities that are receiving money based on a per megawatt basis. Those turbines go up in capacity. So it ends up being beneficial both to the project and to the entities that are related to, payments with those megawatts. So, that's kind of a summary, and, I know, you know, I didn't think that it was gonna be a very quick process to get the law potentially changed. I'd like to just formally put it in front of the board for the board's review, and consider it. It is just a change to the law. There has been some questions in Cohocton about, you know, what about all the impacts related to that change? That gets studied as part of the Article 10, similar to what was already studied. So all the environmental impacts, sound, noise, shadow flicker, all those sorts of things get assessed in great length with the Article 10. So it's not like the Cohocton Wind Farm, which kind of went with the secret process through the town, where they had to do their own review of everything. It's different. This is, we need the town laws changed first, then we can apply to the state with all that environmental information, and then they can take a look. And you guys, and the towns become a party to that once again.
And you're gonna do a whole nother year of Article 10?
So we are planning on that taking 6 months, not a year.
Is Article 10 gonna change?
Article 10, we are retaining our rights in the current Article 10, and anything that is, you know, where we're looking at taller turbines, that part of the Article 10 would be amended. So right now, we are looking at amending the Article 10 for the locations of the turbines outside of Fremont. Almost everything is the same. There have been some shifts, just because the taller turbines with larger rotor diameters require, you know, further setbacks and spacing between one another, so that required some shifts. But I think when we looked at the layout, everything was less than 500 feet for where turbines were going, except for one turbine. So, you know, it's more or less the same, just some have been sort of pulled out.
Just a
of
matter of going
spacing.
through and okaying it all again, that's all gonna have to go through noise and all this
It's
stuff
gonna
again?
have to go through, we're assuming that it's gonna be the same requirement. So the conditions that we have right now, we assume that the state is gonna require us to continue to follow, whether we change the turbine or not. So that means that, you know, if these turbines have modes that you can turn the power output down, which reduces the noise. You know, if you have an issue where one turbine is too noisy for a receptor in some location, you can turn the power down and it reduces the noise levels. So we expect that the state would require us to have the same noise requirements that we currently have in one of our conditions. So whether we pick X turbine or Y turbine, it's still gonna, we think it's still gonna be viewed the same as from the state side on whether, you know, what sort of noise limitations we have. So we don't expect to exceed anything that's already in the Article 10 for noise, and we expect that the environmental impacts will be very similar. What's being affected on the ground is essentially the same roads, same collection, a few less turbines, but, you know, still kind of the same general layout, so.
Just higher.
Just a little taller, right.
Just
Be-
60
be more-
stories instead of 46.
Be more income for the person that owns the turbine.
It's more income
More
for
income.
the company, it's more income for the landowners, and it's more income for the entities that, the towns, the county, the school districts.
What would be a normal height that they would want to be at?
So right now, the laws, and I think Fremont as well, is capped at 500 feet. Danville is 600. We've changed that to 650 for Danville, and Wayland and Cohocton are in the process of doing that. So the turbines are less than that. We have 2 different models that we are considering for the tall turbines. One is 612 and one is 640 on the tip height. So we are just doing all these technical analyses now to run that through our engineering teams to basically assess those turbines and that they're gonna be okay from a turbulence perspective, loading perspective. Since there's a lot of trees and hills, it's a complex, site for that. So the turbine companies and our engineers are just working to agree on that, and then we agree on prices. Prices have gone up because of tariffs, and so we're just trying to make sure everything fits together.
How much longer is the blade? Longer?
So the rotor diameters, surprisingly, actually, the shorter turbine has a wider rotor diameter. It is 158 meters.
That's the smaller one or the one you're talking about?
That's the shorter one. The taller one actually has a slightly smaller rotor of 150 meters.
A different configuration maybe?
It's just the different OEMs have the different blade lengths, different design. So, the rotor diameters really are the biggest driver for what increases the amount of wind resource you get. It's like a square, like in the equation, it really adds a lot of power to the amount of power you can get from the wind.
Are you gonna bring us data on all those to review, or?
We can do that. Right now, basically, we've supplied information to the towns related to, impacts associated with taller turbines. But ultimately, this gets all reviewed and we are taken. So, it's really for reference for your information about what, and we're also doing a simulation for Cohocton of just basically a 500-foot turbine and a 650-foot turbine. Not that that's what we're planning to do, but just to show the difference in the absolute maximum heights of what each law would mean. Looking at it from like a, I don't know, whatever normal distance, like a 2-mile distance or 1-mile distance, just to see that.
Timeframe?
Yeah, the timeframe, right now, we're planning to put everything together for the Article 10 amendment. The plan was to have it all together by the end of the year. Now I think it's gonna be probably I'm hoping for early February. And then we submit, and then we work with them to try to push it along as fast as we can and ask for an answer by June, but I expect it's gonna be July or August. And then we would start construction 2 months after that. So probably a similar timeframe as what we had expected for construction on the part of the project outside of Fremont, starting but 1 year later than we had originally planned.
And then when would you start?
For
Fremont?
phase 2, we're proposing 1 year later, so 2022. I think that's optimistic, but if the town is interested, we can work with the town as fast as you would like, but that is what our plan right now is in our schedule.
Okay.
I think it's also important to note that, all the current layout, the current roads that we looked at using, things like that are still what we would plan on doing, assuming everything is still suitable for the transportation, for the, design. It's just that when things get bigger with wider rotor diameters, the spacing would both be set back a little bit further from setbacks that have, like a relation to the tip height of the turbine, as well as the spacing between the turbines. So it ultimately means less turbines, but more or less the same sort of footprint.
Same amount of output.
That's what we're trying to target for, yeah.
So how many do you think would be taken out of Fremont then, if they went taller? Because there's a lot of them that are pretty close right now to the
Yeah.
750 foot
Yeah,
turbines.
don't know. It depends on, if Fremont is acceptable to increasing the tip height, we can put together a layout same, just what it looks like with taller turbines and the, yeah,
Just email us or whatever.
okay.
Justin, I got a quick question. I asked you a couple of months ago about the manufacturer's recommended setbacks for abnormal
Yeah.
use. Were you able to find that?
Yeah, I did. It's 1.1 times the tip height from the setback or recommendations from General Electric is the one. I think the manufacturer that we had used or assumed in the past was Nordex, and I don't think they had that document, but GE does.
Could the town get a copy of that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we looked at it, it's less than the setbacks that the town already has. And theirs is really just related to safety.
Mhm.
You know.
Are there any other public comments?
I just brought up an issue to the town board about sand that was being taken down at the 21. I wanted to see what the board thought about that.
I spoke with Ron Smith, and he said it has been an ongoing practice, and all the farmers receive the sand.
It's totally illegal. You cannot take taxpayers' money.
Another thing about that, Tom, I'm gonna say something. Jonathan Burns, you complained because I load him, okay? If I had to go over there every time and stand that blacktop where the milk truck goes, and like on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, that's 4 hours. It's gonna take me approximately 45 minutes, and you're gonna pay me 4 hours. If I come back and it's slippery again, and he calls, there's another 4 hours that the town is putting time and a half, where Jonathan is doing it himself with one load a year to keep the road so that the milk truck or the tractors can come up, and you think that the town is out $20, roughly. It's what it costs for that load of sand.
Well, first of all, if you do it for one person, you've got to do it for everybody.
Okay.
Wait a minute, I'm talking now. The second thing is, you cannot take taxpayers' money and purchase something and then give it away. It's illegal, period. Doesn't matter whether it was done in the past or not,
Well,
it's
it's illegal
illegal.
for you to complain about every goddamn little thing that goes on in this town too.
I'm not complaining about everything. I'm stating the
Run your
law.
mouth about everything.
Use just a little bit
No
of
matter
common
what it
sense to
is.
help you a long ways.
Okay.
I could probably go up and see Sam and go right to the pit and get it out, and probably Sam wouldn't even charge him for it.
You know, but this policy was canceled because of you admitting that you got 18 truckloads of gravel for your private drive.
Yeah, but
That's
you
why it was
started
canceled.
that.
Everybody got 2 loads,
Uh-huh,
and you got 4.
uh-huh.
You started,
Yeah,
you and
you
Danny
started.
Hammond.
I did not get 4.
You,
Like that, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
you got yours.
Bottom line is, it's illegal. It doesn't matter whether it was done in the past or not.
Yeah, well, I
and-
think these farmers should be able to have a load.
Oh, I know, the poor farmers that are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants, and they can't afford sand.
Than you've ever paid.
Oh, really?
Guys.
You might better move back out of Fremont.
Yeah.
Guys, be respectful of one another.
No, the tax base that I built in this town,
Here we go. Here we go.
and you and your big ranch over there.
Here we go. Let's insult the taxpayers, Bud, like you've done for all the years you've been on here.
And so, yeah,
Yeah.
and so,
All right,
all right.
does anyone else have any positive comments?
Is the town going to do anything? Are they gonna follow the state law or not? That's all I wanna know.
Dean, what do you think?
It's all on you, Dave. Thank you, I really appreciate all that.
Gas spotlight.
Yeah.
I will say that
I wanna add to Jonathan.
95% of that sand goes on the town road at 4 o'clock in the morning, or 10 o'clock in the morning, or noon, or 5 o'clock at night when a milk truck shows up, or a load of feed gets drug up over that hill, or there is a town truck that has a problem coming up over the hill. 95% of that sand that I got, one load a year, is all I'm getting, and 95% of it goes on that road.
It's illegal. Doesn't matter what you're doing with it, it's illegal. It's a state law.
But he's saving us tons of money. John's one of the most honest people I know.
And you got this on your town board now.
What's the past practice?
Past practices for my entire life that I know of has been, we get a load of sand.
It's been that way ever since I've worked for the town.
Full still.
Back when Henry was supervisor